Hello, my name is Rigo Valdez. I'm president of the United Latinos and of the UFCW, and I want to join everyone here in the panel in welcoming you to our very first webinar. As you know, the safety of our members, families, and communities is our top priority. And so given the circumstances, we were not able to have our educational conference in May. And so we opted to put together a series of webinars. This is the very first of those webinars that is taking place to help us unite as a community and talk and get to know and learn about each other in these times. And so rather than just wait until it is safe to meet and to travel, we decided that we wanted to stay in communication with our membership. And so here we are. The first panel is a panel to get to know some of our Latino elected leaders in the UFCW. I want to remind folks that this does not replace our educational conference. Once it is safe to do so, we will start to plan and to reschedule that conference. Again, my name is Rigo Valdez, president of the United Latinos. I want to acknowledge that it is Pride Month, and so I am wearing my outreach pin. We have a lot of folks from outreach that are joining us today in this very intersectional moment in our lives. I also want to thank the local union leadership from Local 770 for allowing me to help lead this group and creating that space for us to have that Latino leadership within our own local union. So before we start introducing our panelists, I want to acknowledge the latest episode of police brutality that sparked action worldwide. The United Latinos released a statement on the senseless murder of George Floyd and the continuous attacks on communities of color. So I want to start this meeting by reading that statement. Here goes. First and foremost, the United Latinos of the UFCW extends our most sincerest condolences to the family and friends of George Floyd. As a labor organization, we cannot remain silent regarding the systematic violence and racism against Black people in the United States. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, Black lives matter. The United Latinos of the UFCW stands in solidarity with everyone who is outraged and voicing their stands in the streets. From Minneapolis and throughout the United States, your unrest, frustration, and anger is felt. You are heard. We join your outcry for justice for George Floyd, justice for Black and brown people's lives lost in the hands of police brutality, justice for Black and brown people's lives lost in detention centers. Racism and white supremacy plague our system and are deeply rooted in our sociocultural way of life. Today, we join the labor movement and community organizations in calling for justice for George Floyd. Police have terrorized brown and Black working people for hundreds of years. We are frustrated that we keep finding ourselves in this position, and we are angry that justice still seems far out of reach. This frustration has manifested in protests and outrage throughout the United States. Our media has gone from news reports on staggering numbers of COVID-19 deaths to scenes of burning buildings and hundreds of people chanting, "I can't breathe." Both issues are related and exemplify the embedded racism in our system. The majority of people who are dying from COVID-19 were disproportionately African American. We need to understand that this is not about a few officers, but about institutional racism that plagues our society. White supremacy is a widespreading disease that needs to be eradicated. As Latinx, we need to combat the anti-Blackness in our own communities. Latinos are diverse and many of our members are Afro-Latinx. Anti-Blackness in the Latino community is rampant. As labor organizers, we have seen management use race as a divider to wither down our organizing campaigns. We need to show a united front in the face of discrimination and racism. We need to confront our own biases and fight together to dismantle white supremacy. As the United Latinos of the UFCW, we keep fighting for racial and economic justice by building together with other constituency groups and local unions. We need to keep our membership educated about issues related to racial and criminal justice. After all, the change that we want to see starts with us. Together, we must take collective action to dismantle institutions that enable the acts of violence against Black and Brown communities to keep happening. Again, our hearts go out to the families and friends of George Floyd and those families and communities whose lives have been affected by police brutality and immigration enforcement agencies. We shall overcome. Our union is a multiracial community. It is up to us to fight anti-Blackness within our own union and within our society. It is up to us to educate ourselves on how to be good allies and create a society where justice prevails. As the statement read, there is a disproportionate rate of African Americans being infected and perishing from COVID-19. Both Black and Brown communities have been severely impacted by the pandemic. And so I just want to share with you some information about the pandemic and how it affects Black and Brown people. And then we will begin the panel. Hold on. Again, I am new at this. And so let's see if we can make this happen. All right, bingo. It looks like we have a presentation. Again, thank you for your patience. It's our very first one. And so we're gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna get better at this, I have a feeling. So COVID-19 in Black and Brown communities. As you know, we're a union that represents a lot of essential workers. As of today, coronavirus has infected more than 2 million people across the United States. And African Americans and Latinos and other minority populations are being disproportionately affected by the virus. Access to healthcare and working conditions impacts the spread of the virus. So I'm going to share some facts and numbers. We're seeing Latino people die from COVID at a rate that's disproportionate to their state's populations. For example, in New York City alone, newly released data shows that while Latino folks make up 29% of the population, they make up 34% of the deaths attributed to COVID. And then more than 17 million people have filed for unemployment. And half of all of those are Latino people living in the United States right now. Some have lost their jobs or taken pay cuts. So this is information that we got from the LACLA report and from the Mi Gente report that we can share with folks after the webinar. So this particular slide shows African Americans and how they've been disproportionately affected. On the left-hand side, you see the deaths. And so the redder states are where the disproportion is higher. So states like Michigan and Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas are places where more African Americans have died disproportionate to their population. And on the right side, you see the infection rate. So those are cases. And so you see in South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri are some of those states that have the highest disproportionate infection rate. And then for Latinos, while you don't see the disproportionate as high in the deaths, you do see it in the cases. And so you see that places like Utah, Tennessee, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware have higher rates of infection among Latinos. Again, you know, we will share this with folks. Like African Americans, Latinos are overrepresented in essential jobs that increase their exposure to the virus. Disproportionately, the disproportionate share of deaths isn't as stark for Latinos as it is for African Americans. And there's a lot of variations in terms of how data is reported from state to state. The other thing that we want to point out is that and another way that Latinos are affected by the COVID crisis is that Latino undocumented immigrants often don't qualify for unemployment or stimulus checks or any of that kind of support. And so that is also a way that this particular pandemic affects the Latino population specifically. So that's what I have. I just wanted to share just a little bit in terms of some facts and figures. Again, we will share the Mi Gente with everyone. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So there you have it. So I think that just shows a little bit of framework of where we want to take this conversation. Today, we're joined by a very representative group of Latino elected leaders throughout the UFCW. And so I'm going to introduce them one by one and then start the discussion as we introduce folks. So first, we're joined by Kim Cordova. Kim is the president of Local 7 in Colorado, Wyoming. And she started her career at UFCW as a rank and file member. She started at Safeway as a courtesy clerk right out of high school. And after being robbed at gunpoint, she contacted the union about how she can make her workplace a safer place. And so talk about, you know, activism at the jump, right? Health and safety takes another turn when you're at gunpoint. Anyway, so President Cordova became deeply involved in her local as a shop steward. She joined the bargaining committee. By 1993, she became a spur. And later she was hired as an organizer. In 2009, she went back to the rank and file to work at Safeway and then ran with a slate of rank and file folks and won. And in 2010, she became president of Local 7. And by 2014, she joined the International Executive Board. So thank you so much, President Cordova, for being here with us today. How's it going out in Colorado?
Well, we're holding our own out here. You know, our members have really been hit hard with COVID and also experienced the same systemic discrimination that we're seeing all over the country. And so we are actively engaged in the fight for justice and equality here in Colorado. And thank you for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, in what ways, you were talking about, you know, fighting the COVID. We know that that there was an outbreak in Greeley, Colorado. And so I wanted to ask you, what were the ways in which Local 7 engaged organizations and the larger community to help defend members?
So I reached out to a group of faith leaders, very strong, active, very vocal faith leaders throughout the state of Colorado. And we met with elected leaders. They helped, really were instrumental in helping us have the governor reclassify our packing house workers, food processing, and grocery workers as critical and emergency workers, which helped those workers receive paid sick leave, which is really something that we needed help with. They also received free child care because our state was one of the first states, I think, outside of New York, but we had a shelter in, we had a safer or a shelter in order in Colorado, and so all of the schools were closed down, and so our members needed help with childcare. We engaged, elected leaders to force the company to make improvements for safety in those meat processing and food processing plants, as well as the grocery stores. So they were actually, the community and faith leaders were really helpful to us, helped amplify the message that we needed our elected leaders to hear, so that we could get some protections and pay for our critical and essential workers.
That's great. And let me ask you a question. How did being a Latinx leader during the COVID, what was that like?
Just like everybody who represents these workers that were hit so hard, I mean, it takes an emotional toll on you because we care deeply about our members. If they hurt, we hurt. My team, my staff, they worked and continue to work day and night to represent these workers. But I'm very proud that I had the opportunity to stand up and be that voice for our membership. Believe me, I've been as loud as I can be, and I'm talking to everybody that will listen and demanding that these workers, their issues are addressed. And so, for me, I feel it's just such a privilege that I get to wake up every day and fight for workers. And, if it wasn't for us, if not us, then who? Who is going to stand up for these workers who feel like they don't have a voice? And so I'm very proud, very humble to represent the hardworking men and women of the UFCW.
Thank you for that. Now, I think we're seeing a lot of cities reopening. And so as cities are reopening, what are the best practices that we can continue to carry to ensure that our members and our communities are safe?
Well, we have to push for, real reform within our states and our local government, as well as push elected leaders on the federal level to have verifiable and enforceable safety laws. We need federal inspectors inside these facilities. While most of the country was sheltering in, these frontline essential workers have risked their lives every single day that they've clocked in. And we really need to continue our political work, engaging our community leaders as well as faith leaders to help us amplify that message. We need PPE for these workers, and we need to fight these big corporate giants for hazard pay. While Kroger made record profits, they decided to strip the hero pay from our grocery workers. JBS with their, if it wasn't for us, more workers would have died. And we need to push these companies to be better corporate citizens and to take care of their most valuable asset, which is their workers.
That's great. Thank you very much. And thank you for all of the great work that you're doing out in Colorado. And I'll come back to you in a bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think next we'll go to Kansas and talk to one of our leaders, Martin Rosas. Martin also joined UFCW as a rank and file member in Dodge City, Kansas. He is a meatpacking worker. Little known fact that he started working at the plant when he was 17. I'm not sure if that was allowed, but he did it. And after some turmoil and dissent in the plant, Martin actually made it a point to stand up for the Latino workers and help translate the contract into Spanish and shared it so that the workers at his plant knew the value of the union. By 1994, he was hired by Local 2 as a spur and spent 2 years as a business representative. In 2001, he was elected secretary treasurer of the local, and 15 years later, he was elected president of Local 2. Since 2016, he served in this position, and Martin challenges us to do better and be better as an organization, as a union. He's shaping and mentoring the next generation of Latino leaders within the UFCW, within his local union, and within the United Latinos of the UFCW. And so we're excited to have him here today. Martin, gracias.
Thank you. Gracias, Rigo. Gracias a todos, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel. Yeah, I've been involved in the union since 1989, 17 years of age. I've become a member. So
so you started very young. You have a whole lot of experience at rabble-rousing.
Yes, yes. I work at the plant. learn the hard way to get involved in the union. But it's been a blessing for me to be able to use all the knowledge that I obtained throughout this year to help and continue to move the labor movement forward. This COVID-19 has a very unprecedented challenges for the people that we represent in the packing plants, the retail and food and business. This is the UFCW is the largest private sector union in the United States, and therefore we got over 250,000 members that we represent in the packing industry. Local 2 component, the vast majority, 80% of their membership consists of meatpacking workers. We represent employees in Southwest Kansas, in Kansas City, in Missouri. And this time has been very challenging for us, but at the same token, we feel very blessed and lucky being able to help and assist our membership on these times of needs.
Thank you for that. And I know that you guys have done a really great job, and you guys have also had, you know, quite a bit of outbreak within your local. And so I just wanted to ask, you know, what were some of the best practices that Local 2 implemented on behalf of immigrant workers throughout the COVID?
Well, one of the biggest challenge for us was from the get-go, engage with these employers and have them try to follow protocols that were instituted by the CDC at that time. And there were recommendations and never been anything mandatory. So what we did is we're still in process to enhance those protocols as we move forward through this pandemic. It's very challenging because just taking consideration that none of these protocols they're mandatory. So the best practices that we come up with is try to force these employers to become a good citizens for their workers and force them to institute those protocols and those plans. And you know, it varies from plant to plant because we did having a big outbreak in two of our packing plants, and one was in Missouri and the other one was in Southwest Kansas.
And so let me ask you a question. What were some of the challenges that you faced when dealing with the local and state governments? I know that you said that a lot of these best practices were not regulated.
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we will have was the state and federal government agencies. They haven't really taken the role play that they have to take, and especially under these conditions. All they did is came and try to institute some kind of recommendations. Nothing is mandatory. So we contact the state agencies. We work with the state governor to come up with some kind of protocols. However, the biggest challenge that we have with those agencies is that none of those protocols are mandatory for these plants. None of their recommendations, they're mandatory for this plan. So whether it's local or federal government, they've been a silent partner for these packing plants, not for the working people that they should be assisting, which is the constituency group that they should be representing in these conditions.
So I know that Dodge City is one of the places that was hardest hit, that in Dodge City, Kansas, 1 out of every 20 residents has tested positive. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, in March, we sent a letter to the governor, and one of the things is we sent him warning signs to the governor, kind of guiding and raising the issue about that city. Whenever we get to the outbreak, it's going to be devastated for the community, because 75% of the population in that town is affected by what happened in those plants. That city has 2 major packing plants. One is Cargill, the other one is National Beef. So the population in that city is anywhere from 28 to 35,000 people. So when you really take in consideration the number of people that works in those plants and their immediately dependents, that components come up to be 70 or to 75% of the population in that city being affected by whatever happens on those plants. And since we know in the plants it's a little bit challenging, it's very challenging to follow these protocols by social distancing, implementing all those protocols that the government want them to do, recommend them to do. What will happen is we were concerned about what was going to happen in that city. And a month later, after we contacted the governor's office, we got the biggest outbreak in the whole state of Kansas, where 1 out of 20 of those people in that city was positive for COVID. And we still have a challenge in that city because of packing plants. I do believe one of those packing plants was trying on the process to institute most of those protocols. The other one was playing more like playing with the time. The only thing that we forced the governor to do was for them to provide people with alternative housing. And what I mean by that is the state provide people with hotel rooms. If you were placed in quarantine, in order for them to mitigate the spread of the virus in your home, they would put you in the hotel with the nursing staff. They feed you. They put you in quarantine in the hotel for the 14 days or 10 days, whatever that was required by the health department. That was the only thing positive that the state and government did on our behalf. Other than that, we still have a challenge. You know, the governor hasn't announced anything where they force these employers to fulfill those requirements in a mandatory way.
So I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Kim. What is it like to be a Latino elected leader in the UFCW right now in the time of COVID?
Well, you know what? I think I take it like it's an opportunity for us to represent those constituency groups that we represent in those packing plants and those communities too. So, while it's difficult, I do believe it's a blessing for us to be heavily in the front of this fight to represent these workers, because I just can't conceive who else can do a better job to voice their concern of the population of those towns, in those communities, and those plants than someone who came out of that industry. I actually work in one of those plants, but it's a challenging time. But on the other hand, I think we feel privileged to be the voice of those immigrant workers and the plants, and not only the immigrants, but I think every single employee in those facilities and those plants.
Well, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Obviously, this is not over, and we have a long ways to go. But thank you for joining the panel. I'll again come back to you later.
Thank you, Rigo. Gracias.
De nada, hermano. Fernando Lemus, congratulations, President Lemus. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Rigo?
Good. You became president during the COVID.
Wow, what a time, right? Talk about challenging.
Right? We'll get to that in a second. I do want to tell a little bit of your story, but I'm super proud of you and your leadership of your local in Boston. I had the pleasure of working with you many years ago on the Smithfield campaign and in Boston, and I think that was one of the coalitions that was pivotal for that fight. Anyhow, let's talk a little bit about Fernando. Fernando joined the union as a rank and file member. He worked at Filene's Basement. For those of you who remember Filene's, it was a department store that was bought by Federated and then became Macy's. And he worked there also in 1989, and he probably was not 18 either. But he used, as well, he became a shop steward because that he wanted to represent Latino and folks of color that were working there that were not being represented. So by 1996, he joined the staff of Local 1445 as a spur on the organizing team, and later became a servicing rep. And by 2015, he became the collective bargaining director. And last year, he assumed the position as secretary treasurer, probably one of the shortest secretary treasurer terms in UFCW history, because then just a few months later, he became the president of Local 1445, making him the first Latino ever on staff, on the executive board, and president of that local. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Rigo.
So what's going on in Boston?
Well, as I said before, that was really challenging during this COVID times when it first hit for us here in Boston, which was around the second week of March. So at that time, I had just taken over the local within about 2 weeks. And I was waiting actually for my e-board meeting to be elected officially, and that didn't take place at all because we couldn't meet. But it didn't matter because now COVID is here, and you know, everything, hell broke loose basically. But one of the biggest challenges that we had originally then was the fact that schools were shutting down. Our members went into chaos because they didn't want to show up for work. One, because they were scared, and two, obviously, a good number of them didn't have childcare. So that was one of the first challenges that we had, and we have to pound every single employer to allow our members to stay home because they couldn't come to work. Most of the employers were flexible about that, but then immediately after that was basically the fact that we have to try to get hazard pay, because now these members are working in hazardous conditions. And even though the employer didn't want to hear hazard, it was, and we kept calling it that. And I know other employers call it hero pay, they call it, you know, many different things, but the reality is that our members were high risk and they needed to be compensated. So that was the next challenge there. Then, of course, essential. We want our folks in the grocery stores. We have around 8,000 members in our local union that work for one employer with Stop and Shop here in Boston. And we wanted to make sure that the governor would assign them as essential employees in order for them to qualify for the school, you know, and be able to get childcare for free. So that was another campaign, sending letters to the governor, you know, talking to the governor's office, which was brand new to me. They didn't know who the hell this Latino guy is, right? So there was a lot going on back and forth. And then, of course, after that, it was, you know, a lot to do with the PPE, because the employers were not providing enough PPE to our members, claiming that they didn't have enough. And so we were hoping too that by classifying under essential, the employers will have the ability to buy and to be more in the priority side to get proper PPE. And of course, a lot of the employers claiming that they did have the proper PPE for our members, but that was not true, because the CDC was relaxing the guidelines, and so therefore our members were now using a mask for a whole week, which, you know, it's crazy, because especially in the grocery stores is like, no, maybe in the health care setting, they're more used to use a mask during procedures. But for us in the grocery stores, that was brand new, and they didn't want to do that. They want to get a mask. So that was definitely a challenging with the state and the employers. But here we are. Still fighting for the hazard pay, because here in Boston, the Stop and Shop and throughout the Northeast, they did extend it until July 4th. But now we have a whole campaign basically telling the company that we want to keep that additional 10% that they gave us. We want to keep it. And so that's going to be a fight.
Good luck with that. I know that our members in the Northeast deserve that. You also had a whole host of non-essential workers that were laid off. What kind of things did you do for those members? What were the response from the local for those members?
So we have another 4,500 members, but out of those, we have some that were manufacturing, but in total, we had about 2,500 that were let go on a layoff. About 1,000 were working in the hospitality side, whether they were the TD Garden here in Boston, industrial laundries, for instance, where there's a lot of, unfortunately, undocumented members that we have there. And so immediately when the hotel shut down, so all these folks were immediately sent home. And of course, we help the ones that they can apply for unemployment, which was a really small number. And then you have a large number that could not apply. They're not eligible. And of course, that becomes a major issue. And they were lost too, though, because for us, Latinos, because the majority of Latinos, and then we have some other ethnicities, but the reality is they were lost. They were lost. We feel lost too, right? Because this is not something that happens every day, but can you imagine them? So they didn't know what to do. So what we did was to get them into, we started off by aligning them and sending them off to different organizations, nonprofit organizations with distributing food, but the lines were so big. You were really familiarized with the Chelsea Collaborative, and we were helping the organization at one point, and they were having lines of about 3,000, 3,500 each day waiting in line to get food. So it was so bad that our members, some of them would get, others wouldn't. And we were sending all the help down to the organizations to try to branch out through the organizations that we have a good relationship with in the greater Boston area. But then we decided to team up with a Chinese restaurant. It's called Pagu, which was a good idea through Massachusetts Justice of Justice, trying to get, because the restaurant business was shut down, trying to get their employees back to work and also help us. So what we did is we worked with them and negotiated a deal of a box of 40 pounds of food for $35 a week. And so we put out a list for organizations that will help us deliver the food, because we didn't want our folks to come out. We wanted to take it home, right? Because, because of the spread of the virus. So anyways, we did it every single week. And so that's basically what we're doing now. Every week we sending out 40 pounds of food to our members. And our goal is to expand that, because we know that some of these folks may not be able to go to work because some of the employers already told us that they don't think they're going to reopen. So this is a long-term commitment.
Thank you, brother. We'll also come back to you later. I think we want to go to the north. Our organization is a 3-country organization, United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And so today we're being represented by Pablo Godoy, who is the Western Region Director of UFCW Canada. Pablo also joined the UFCW as a rank and file member. He was the ripe age of 14 when he started working at a grocery store, Loblaws, in Canada. 2 years after he became employed, he became the shop steward, making him the local's youngest shop steward. And Pablo has a deep commitment to making a difference and a true impact on workers' lives. He is a true trailblazer. At 22, he began working as a staff member for the national office in Canada. And by 2018, he became the UFCW's director for Western Canada. He has increased the visibility of the United Latinos in Canada and has paved the way for the United Latinos as an organization to grow in Canada. And we want to thank you for your leadership in Canada, and it's been instrumental so far, and it will be instrumental for years to come. Thank you for joining us, Pablo.
Thank you for having me, and saludos a todos, and thank you for those kind words, Rigo.
Thank you. So what's going on in Canada?
Well, tough to summarize everything across coast to coast, but I'd say that across the country, our locals are busy providing services, help, and support to our membership that are working on the front lines throughout this pandemic. You know, many of the same things that our brothers and sisters and friends are facing in the US are realities here in Canada too. We've had several outbreaks in different facilities, specifically in Western Canada and our meatpacking and processing plants. We've had some pretty severe outbreaks. We've seen, sadly, the passing of members in our meatpacking plants, in our grocery stores. Throughout all of this, however, our members have remained strong, have still provided that essential service to Canada, as we like to say, where we're actively still putting food on the plates of people while they eat and are at home self-isolating or in quarantine. Really, in Canada, we see our membership as the cornerstone or the backbone of how society has been able to continue, and we really provide the opportunity for others to hopefully stay safe. You know, whether it's in healthcare facilities, and I have to do it, but I know my mom joined the webinar today. Not only is she a healthcare worker, but she's also a UFCW member. So our healthcare facilities and service centers are all obviously at the front lines. And so, you know, we've had to push hard in various sectors and various provinces to ensure that employers are providing their adequate amount of protections. We've been able to win in many cases or urge and be able to be a part of ensuring hazard pay, appreciation pay in our grocery stores and our meatpacking plants. But unfortunately, we're also seeing those things being rolled back a bit too soon. You know, I think often we have to stop and also recognize not only all the work that our membership across the country are doing in these difficult times, quite literally risking their lives to keep society going, but I think it's important that, you know, the people on this call participating, my fellow panelists, we take a moment to also acknowledge all the work that we as, you know, union activists continue to do, because it's not always easy. It's been difficult. In Western Canada, our Western Canada team has been really at the epicenter of taking on the calls and really providing services to our members in facilities where there's been outbreaks of 500, 600, up to 1,500 cases of COVID attributed to these. And they're difficult calls. It's difficult work. It takes a toll. And so while I think that we've done a marvelous job across Canada, while I think that we've pushed employers and levels of government to A, appreciate our membership, B, acknowledge the essential and important work that it is that our members do, it's also, we're seeing the tremendous work and value of our union brothers and sisters that work very hard daily to fight for and take a stand for workers across Canada. I think one of the bigger places we've had some issues, and something I'm very proud of is when it comes to migrant workers in Canada. As you know, Rigo, our union has over 20 years of fighting for the rights of migrant workers that are underdocumented, undocumented, and some of Canada's most vulnerable workers. And throughout the pandemic, that trend unfortunately has continued. So we've seen massive outbreaks on farms in Southern Ontario and Western Canada. where workers continue to have very little access to information, to protection, and are being really quite literally told to keep getting infected and really have little access to recourse or resource. But like our history suggests, UFCW Canada has answered that challenge and has been there at the forefront of fighting for the rights of those workers, the vast majority of which are from Latin America or Latinx workers who unfortunately in some cases don't even have the right to unionize. But our union, who believes a worker is a worker is a worker, has answered that call and is fighting day to day to ensure that the rights of all workers across the food chain from coast to coast, from field to table, are being respected, and their lives are being at the very least protected as much as possible.
Well, we're always impressed at the work that is being done in Canada. Thank you for that. I know that as United Latinos, we went and visited some of your migrant worker centers and saw the incredible work that you've done. I wanted to ask specifically, what have the foreign governments done about the nationals that are working in Canada to support their citizens in Canada?
I think it's a complex question to answer. In many cases, it's been the same response that has always been given whenever we fight for the rights of workers in Canada that are migrant workers. And that's often, unfortunately, the passing of the accountability of who should be taking care or responsibility of workers while they're in Canada. And while all the levels of government and international foreign governments are trying to figure that out, we have maintained one thing very clear, and that's that we won't shy away from protecting these workers, regardless of who it is that skirts accountability. In some cases, some information has been given in Canada. They've passed some laws to create some funds to employers so that they can assure that workers isolate for 14 days so they can quarantine if they get sick. But we know the truth of the matter is that without real representation, without a union backing, there's very little ensuring that these things happen. And so that's where I think we play the loudest role, the biggest role, is that ensuring that the employers are actually using the money that is being given to them federally to actually make sure that workers are staying safe. And so while there has been some response from the federal government and governments abroad, it still falls upon our shoulders to ensure that workers are protected.
And we know that UFCW Canada will do all that's in its power to protect these workers.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you the same question that I've asked several folks before. What is it like to be a Latinx leader right now in Canada in the union movement during the time of COVID?
Well, I think at any time it's a very privileged thing. I think that the comments you made in terms of my ability or the opportunity I have to spread the United Latinos name and organization here in Canada only speaks to the massive amount of work that people like you, Rigo, people like my fellow panelists have done, putting in years of work, and our opportunities for me and the next generation of Latinx leaders really stand on the shoulders of giants like the people that I'm honored to share this panel with and others that have come before. I think that in a moment like COVID, it's an opportunity for us to really showcase, like we always say, se puede, sí, se puede. We have the energy, we have the passion, we have the capabilities, and we won't really shy away from any type of issue, battle, or fight. And so if anything, what this moment has brought upon is really a renewed sense of ferocity when it comes to protecting our members and showing that we can and we will fight any type of battle. And this is one like we've never really confronted in the past, and yet I think all of the brothers and sisters on this call and many sitting at home have really answered the bell when it comes to ensuring that workers are protected. And so I think we carry the Latino or Latinx badge as a badge of honor. And in these moments, it's something that we do even louder, because we know that unfortunately, Black and brown people are being disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. So if we're not going to be the leaders in these moments, who will, right? And so really, it's tough, it's difficult, but it's also humbling to know that so many people need us to be stepping up to the plate. And I'm happy to do so, as I know you all are as well.
Thank you for that. Again, we'll come back to you. And then for those of you participating, you'll have your opportunity to answer questions. There is a question and answer tab where you can type in your question, and in a few moments, we'll start to take some of those questions. But before we do that, we're gonna move to our sister from New Jersey, Agueda Arias. Agueda, how you doing?
Hi, Rigo. ¿Cómo estás?
I'm good. I'm good. I want to talk a little bit about you, and then let's see what's going on at Local 888. Our dearest Agueda, she joined UFCW 888 by destiny. It was her destiny. In Agueda fashion, she saw a rally outside of a grocery store and asked a worker what was going on. She jumped into action, as many folks within the UFCW have done. She did it to help the members in the store. And she's helped members ever since for 23 years. She's served on staff at Local 888. She was hired as an organizer to organize union members. Before that, she was a community organizer, making sure that Black and Brown people in Washington Heights knew about their healthcare options, their healthy eating options, and trying to fight obesity and heart disease, which plagues both of our communities. And so she's always been for the people, and now she's for the union members at Local 888. In 2010, she was elected Secretary Treasurer, a position that she holds dear and has held ever since. We are very lucky to have her because she's also part of leadership at Minority Coalition and Women's Network. And so thank you. I know that you're super busy, so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me with this group of leaders, very inspirational leader, and then with this our first webinar. So then thank you. Gracias. Gracias.
So Local 888 was deeply affected by COVID-19. You guys lost a very large portion of your membership. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, we are a small local, and then right in March, we most of 80% of our membership went on furlough because we represent mainly warehouses and department store members. So then they were the first one to close. So remember, so then the pandemic was in the malls and where a lot of people gather. So then they have to close. So then right there, most of our membership went on furlough. They were afraid, they didn't have information. So then we have to help them to fill out the unemployment. Most of them didn't fill out unemployment in their life. So, and then also remember that the unemployment wasn't regular way. So they have to do it through the phone, punching buttons, or through the website, where, again, the majority of our members do not have access to computer or are afraid to, technology. So then we have to be there for them, morning, noon, and night, helping them to fill out their unemployment benefit when they have problems, how to go through. So then that was a challenge, a big challenge also with the communication. They didn't have a lot of communication. So what we should do, how we do it. And then thank you to United Latinos and LACLA. So then we have the information in Spanish, because also we have a lot of our membership are Latino speaking. So then they don't have the language. So then we have to provide them also with the information in Spanish. So then we have a lot of work for them, but they thank us because we were there and they turned to us, and we responded. So that's mainly what we did at the beginning. So now we are continuing working with them through our social media, the website, the Instagram, the Facebook. So then we put all the information out there for them to have it. Also, we through Hustle, we communicate with our members. Zoom, we communicate with our shop stores, and text also to different companies. So then depend what they needs. So then we were communicating with them later by later. Also, what we did was to create a line of communication through our membership. Every night we were contacting 10 different members, asking them how they're doing, how their family, if they need something. So to be in contact with them, to show them that we are there in case that they need us. So
the pandemic hit New York and New Jersey very, very hard. How was that as a local union leader, where you have most of your members out of work, and the pandemic is spreading fierce throughout the city?
Well, I will tell you, it was very challenging. One of the things that I didn't say before is that you said that, or the statistics shows that the brown and black were the most hit by this pandemic. So in our local, we have around 176 positive, but out of that, 21 people, as of today, 21 people died of the COVID-19. And imagine, so then a small local, small membership, and then almost every day they were calling, oh, so and so died from this company. People that we know, people that we were in meetings with them. So then that's hurt us really hard. And with our members, sometimes we have to help them to arrange the funeral, because in here, some of the funeral homes didn't want to take the people they knew that was that they died from the COVID-19. So then we have to be to know which funeral home will take them, and if they don't have the money, so we have to help them to collect the money. So then we feel like we were a good asset to the members, and then we feel proud that we are here when they need us the most.
An extraordinary job supporting members. So I want to ask you the kind of the $10 million question. What is it like to be an elected union leader during the time of COVID?
Well, for me, it's a very challenging thing, but also it's a privilege to be here as a Latina, to provide voice to my people, and in the time of need, to be there for them. And I think that the information that we are giving is very valuable. And then thank you to the United Latinos that we have also the information in Spanish for them. So not only the information, but accurate and in Spanish. So then that they appreciate that, because sometimes they go around and they couldn't understand, and they make mistakes because they don't have the proper information. So in this case, I feel privileged to be a Latina and part of the United Latinos to help our members.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your leadership and everything that you do for our organization and for your members. We saved the best for last. We're gonna go to the great state of Texas to Felipe Mendez. Felipe, how you doing?
Doing good, Rigo. Good to be here.
Felipe also has a really wonderful, wonderful story. He also comes from the rank and file. And in 1976, he began working as a meat cutter and in an amalgamated meat cutter local union for JBS, for a JBS plant in Texas. And that plant was a majority Latino plant. And during that time, he stood up to management when there was a racial slur thrown out there about folks' origin. I think this is one thing in common that a lot of the folks here have stood up to racism and have stood up to discrimination, and that propelled their leadership. And same with Felipe. Felipe quickly was elected to become shop steward as soon as he stood up, because that's what happens with leadership when you show it in that way. He became shop steward and continued to work with the UFCW closely. He became an organizer and a rep, and his local merged with 540 and became part of the UFCW. In 1989, he became packing house director of Local 540, and under the leadership of Johnny Rodriguez, our President Emeritus of the United Latinos, he came on this board and has been on this board for a very long time. In 2000, he was elected as Secretary Treasurer, and he's been serving in that position since. Felipe has shown this organization a lot of leadership and has helped grow it, cultivate Latino leaders within his union, but also within this organization. And so we're very, very grateful for your leadership, Felipe.
Thank you, Rigo.
And we're honored to have you.
No, I'm honored. I'm honored to be here and with all these great leaders in this panel. Listen to them and the hard work, their challenges that have been going on throughout this country. It's an honor. It's an honor to be with every one of you.
And it must not be easy to be in Texas. What's going on in Texas?
Well, I'll tell you, as you well know, our local, we got a pretty good sized jurisdiction, and now in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we've been very blessed because, even up to this time, there's some units that we have not had even one positive, in some of the food processing plants. But like I said, our local is mainly, in packing, food processing and poultry. That's a little bit of a different story there. So we've been, I guess I can say we've been blessed overall. I know that one death is too much, regardless, because we losing a person, losing a human being is very hard. But when we look at we represent 12,000 workers, and we've only had about 12 deaths throughout. That's been that we're thankful for that. I wish we didn't have any, but as everyone is speaking, this pandemic, is if you have underlying conditions, that's going to hit you harder, and that's what's happened in those cases.
Felipe, can you tell me a little bit about what 540 has done to protect their members in meat packing and in the meat departments of the retail stores?
What we've done, Rigo, immediately, as every one of them has been talking here, we're in unprecedented, times, definitely. What 540 did is immediately, when we're hearing in the news, everything is starting to spread. We definitely, we're good that our service reps have been having the access to our facilities. So our service reps kept in daily contact with all the stewards and all the units, keep getting updates of what was going on. Also our local, communicated with our membership through Hustle. We were able to achieve phone numbers. We requested from the employers, and they were cooperative and giving us the phone numbers, and we were able to text by Hustle and keeping them informed, on the updated, information of coronavirus from CDC. They were scared, definitely. And we assured them that they were not alone. UFCW, the union, was here for them. But we kept daily contact with the employers. We wanted to make sure that the appropriate protocols were being implemented, and we made a lot of recommendations too, also to them. Following guidelines from all the communication, conference that we were having. We were having some calls where we were getting a lot of ideas, and we were pushing the employers to make sure that they protected the workers. And as everyone have done in this panel, making sure that once we know that the symptoms are there, that if somebody felt sick, to assure them not to go to work. If they have temperature, make sure getting the temperature check. Practicing social distancing. And making sure that they had good sanitizing stations. And at the beginning, I gotta say this, that I think that because of the shortage of supply, everybody had more issues the earlier parts of March, when this started, because I know one of the employers, as a matter of fact, told us that they had ordered, about 10 million masks, and actually customs had actually intercepted them, that because they were being sent, to the hospitals and to the first responders. So they were scrambling on getting some of these masks. But we continued, working together with them, and finally everything came together, and now, that's exactly what they're doing. They're, some of the companies, actually, employers even put those, I guess, to take their temperatures, because at first they started on your forehead, and then they're using different kinds, and this way was more easier for them to be able to take the temperatures and of the employees. Now the other thing from our local that we've been successful on is and to be able to service and communicate with our workers, is because through the years and the leadership here in 540, we were able to negotiate implant offices in the bigger plants, and that gave us, full access, and continuous presence inside the plants. And we have an implant rep that we have in each one of those offices, so we can better service, better communicate, and so really it didn't stop. That was a good part, because we were able to handle new hire orientations. We were able to be there, for the membership during this time. The only main thing, and what the challenges that everyone probably had, is really communicating to all the workers to continue those protocols, to do that, because some probably when they left, maybe they wouldn't continue, and there were possibilities when somebody could contract the virus.
Thank you for that. We have about 18 minutes left, and we want to open it up to see if there's some questions for the panelists. If folks want to ask questions, there's a Q&A panel that we can open questions. I have 2 questions, and then I have a hand raised. You can also raise your hand if you would like to speak. So our first question is from Jean Tong. I'm going to allow Jean to talk. Let me see if we can get her. Jean?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Jean, I want to say thank you to you and the rest of the outreach board, especially Michelle Kessler, for postponing your own executive board meeting so that you can encourage people to come and join this discussion.
Absolutely. And thank you. This has been just a very emotional panel to hear everyone share their experience. So I just want to thank you for your diverse and your inspiring leadership for all the members across our whole entire union family. So I'm going to ask kind of like an intersectional question. Just wonder if you all could give some examples or suggestions on how constituency groups can work together to make all these changes that we want to see in our union, in our workplace, and our communities, because the tasks in front of us are enormous, and I feel like we could do a lot together. So just want to post it out there. Thank you.
All right, don't go anywhere. Let's see which panelists would like to take that.
Hi, Jean. You know, I think with our constituency groups out there, we all represent, you know, our workers, our members, our communities that see a different America, right? I've talked about this in the past, that a lot of us experience two Americas. You know, one where there's some folks see privilege, you know, they experience privilege and opportunity. And then there's those that experience injustices like, you know, they don't see equality. They see police brutality. They see this systemic racism in this country. And so I think as all of the constituency groups, we got to continue to protest and demand change and real reform in this country. And we do that by, you know, raising our voice as loud as we can be, being on these type of panels, being out where there's protests so that we can demand real change and real reform and real progress. We can't just stop. We have to continue to push our agendas and move forward and be as aggressive as we can be. And I think it's great that you participated in this panel, and I thank you for doing that. But I think that we just have to keep doing the work that we're doing. We just have to find leaders, empower folks, and help them use their voice so that we can create the change that our workers, our members deserve, our communities deserve.
Thank you, Kim. That was a very insightful response. I want to call on my sister Agueda, who is actually a part of the board of 3. You beat me. I'm only part of a board of 2 constituency groups. Maybe you could talk a little bit as well. You're on mute, Agueda. So
yes. Okay, I unmute. Yes, I agree with Kim in terms of the to raise our voice as loud as we can, but also we need to talk to our members. So we cannot be afraid to discuss with our membership what is going on with us. You know, so then why there's some people are fortunate or privileged and others have nothing or less than nothing. So then we have to open this for them to give more education, more information, so that the people can see, and then they can join us to be fighting and to keep out there to stop this discrimination that is you know, so then unfortunate. So then, but if we work together, we can accomplish more. But I think that we have to do it, you know, we have to bring our membership also with us, because they are so disinformed outside that you can imagine. So that's what all I want to add.
Thank you, Jean, for that. We have another question.
Rigo, do you want me? Can
Yeah.
I say something?
Absolutely.
So thank you, Jean, for your question, and thank you for participating. So police brutality is something that we have faced, and in our communities. I'm a board member of La Comunidad Inc. in Everett, which is Everett, Massachusetts, which is a greater Boston area. And we have raised this issue with the police department in the city of Everett for years, and we have created change. Everett has been a city of Italian Americans, and we have not been able to elect Latinos into the city hall in the city of Everett. And so whether it's on immigration, we have the police going into homes to arrest people or arrest them on the streets, doing the job of ICE basically, and instead, so all these things we have brought them up to the police department and create change in the city of Everett through the organization La Comunidad Inc. So I know firsthand basically what we go through in this country. We shouldn't feel unsafe when we walk through the streets or a cop stop me. Which, it's always like the fear, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? We shouldn't feel that way. So we need to end the discrimination and injustice in this country. And we need to unite with all the constituency groups. Jean, I agree with you, because we go through this on a daily basis, right? People that come into these organizations complaining of different issues that they confront with the police. Or other government agencies, if you will. So definitely, I agree with you, and we should continue to work with them.
Thank you. Anyone else before I go on to the next question? Going once. Thank you, Jean, again. We have a question from Rene Rodriguez. Rene, are you there? Rene Rodriguez.
Hello.
Hey, Rene, how's it going?
Going pretty good, my brother. Just real quick, all this hard work we're doing in this time of crisis with our members, what is the next step as far as getting our members to the ballot box in November?
It's a very good question. Who wants to take that question?
I'll take a shot at it.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes. Hi, Renee. Thank you for joining our panel tonight. We appreciate you. I think we have to keep our members have to stay mad. They have to, we have to make sure we continue to remind them of everything that happened, especially, our essential workers. They've been treated as disposable objects, as sacrificial workers. And, they should remember how their employers treated them when they needed them the most. I think that is one of the big issues, is that we got to keep them fired up. And, they can't go back to normal. I think what has happened with these big corporations is that while they've tried to pivot back to normal, our workers are still on the front line. They need to know that how essential they are and how critical they are. It's a shame that workers have died in this country, and blue-collared workers, essential workers, frontline workers have died over COVID. And, they're the backbone of this country, the backbone of this economy. And we have to continue to lift them up and let them know how important they are to our communities, to us, to society. And we have to keep that conversation going. We have to continue to remind them how they were treated during this whole pandemic. And we need to keep that momentum going. we have to remind them that we cannot experience 4 more years of this racist president who has done nothing but divide this country, and really created a bigger gap between what a CEO makes and a frontline worker makes. And, you know, there was a middle class, you know, and we have to continue to be that voice for workers. So we got to keep people, they got to stay upset. They got to stay mad. They can't just go back and forget what happened to them during this whole crisis or this last 3.5 years. Because enough is enough. We have to continue to push them, empower them, and remind them that they're worth so much more.
Thank you, sister. Anybody else want to take a shot?
Hey, Rigo, it's Pablo. So I would say that while in Canada we don't necessarily have an upcoming election in November, I would say that there is an opportunity. And that opportunity is what Sister Kim mentioned, right? Is that there's an opportunity to keep, whether it's members mad or at least, you know, aware of the fact that we went through this crisis. Employers were able to somehow pay a little bit more. And so this notion that they can't should be normalized, that we actually start combating that notion that they're not worth more, that they shouldn't be paid more. When it comes to politicians and our legislative systems, when we hit this pandemic, resources, money, at least in Canada, there was some financial assistance and these programs created that leads me to believe that you know, we have to be more cognizant of the fact that there are resources there. There are abilities to help workers, to lift the livelihoods and well-being of people, that there are 2 types of politicians out there, and the COVID crisis has really highlighted that. There are those that really care about the well-being and safety of people, their ability to make a living, to survive, to be able to have a home, a roof over their heads, and those that don't really care so much about those things. I think that binary you know, approach to how I think we've seen how politicians have dealt with COVID allows us for an opportunity, hopefully, to reinvigorate what our political activism or our union activism looks like. And I'm hoping that it really creates some type of wave of inspiration or action, or whether that's through anger, whether that's through belief. But I think these moments have shown that it's okay for us to demand more, that there is more available, but that we need all of us combined, and perhaps this touches on the first question, that until all of us are working in unison and appreciate that each other are struggling alone, but together we're able to actually push these systems to force them into giving us and providing more, I think there's hope, and I think there is a moment of possibility moving forward.
Rigo, let me say something to very quickly on this. I think the commitment of the local union is important. Thank you, Rene, for the question. And yes, as leaders of the local, we have to make that commitment. My local, back on January 6th, we started a program where my reps will go and talk to the membership. We have that ability to go into our sites and talk to the members, not only to contribute to the active ballot club so we can help elect our folks that are going to help us. And as my fellow panelists have already mentioned, that we need to win in November. But in order to do that, we need, number 1, money, and we need, number 2, we need to make sure that we have to register our members to make sure they're ready to vote in November. And that's one of the commitments that we made. And by the time COVID hit mid-March, we had already reached new contributors, because when our members feel like, you know, yes, I want to change in this political arena now, so they feel part of it if they contribute into it. And we were collecting an additional $1,500 a week on this active ballot club. But registration is a key as well.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Renee. Stay safe. Look forward to seeing you again very soon, brother.
You got it, brother.
Okay, we have Manuel Guerrero, who has his hand up. Manuel, how are you doing, brother? Manuel. Manuel Guerrero. Here we
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Yes. How are you doing, brother?
Hello, thank you very much, Rigo, all the family members of United Latinos. My name is Manuel. I work for the International Union, RWSU, United for Commercial Workers. And I want to start by saying thank you very much, Rigo, for calling me or texting me by Facebook while I was recovering from COVID. It was back in April, right? Even though we met a couple times, I was really surprised, and you showed the kind of person that you are by reaching out to me and checking on me, you know, how I was doing with my recovery. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Rigo. I deeply appreciate it. About our union job regarding taking care of our members, we joined forces with the community, and we've been having a food drive for the last month. It's going to last until July, providing food, grocery, and fresh vegetables to our members and also members of the community. We have been very, very successful in collecting goods for small companies and packing, getting a lot of volunteers, and being close to our members, assisting them because they are unemployed. Our goal was to supply food to those members who were or are not receiving benefits from nowhere. As you see, many of our members are undocumented, and they were not collecting unemployment, even though they pay taxes. But we did not, even though the campaign was focused on that particular membership, we welcome everyone, you know, because there were people in need, New Yorkers and in need of getting food. Our locals like 338, local 262 from New Jersey, 108, also they run their own food drives in coordination with the international. So we still, I think, 10 more locations to go within the metropolitan area, and we are very happy to keep assisting our members. Joseph there, I don't know if Joseph would like to add something.
For sure. Joseph? Okay, let's get Joseph on. Joseph always has something inspirational to say.
Yes, always.
Joseph, brother, how are you? You got called out.
Very good. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a great panel, and I'm learning a lot here. And everyone is encouraging each of us on this panel. Thank you so much. Well, Manuel mentioned the activities that we're doing with some of our workers. A lot of them are unemployed, like he said. Some of them couldn't even, were so afraid to get out. So we had organizers delivering food to their house also. In the South, we lost a lot of members, and the companies didn't care. So we had to go public with that. And we did the best we could. And now workers in the South really understand that without the union, there's no future for them. And this is exactly what, from what I heard here, that's what everybody's been doing. Without the union, there's no future for working people in this country. We also have, I have Louis Lopez and Danny Rigetti from Louis Lopez is from RWDSU's office as an organizer. He's been doing a lot of work all over, but Danny also is the president of the local 262, and he represents a lot of Latino members, and some of his shops are 100% Latinos. For instance, Flexon had a big issue there. If you don't mind, Rigo, I would like to invite Danny so he could give you an amazing report on that.
Absolutely. Danny Rigetti?
Yes.
Perfect. Hello, Danny. We're getting the RWDSU report. This is great.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. This is how RWDSU rolls, huh?
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'll share a quick story. and hopefully it inspires some people. So in late March, I'm sorry, hang on one second, because I have to actually plug my phone in because it's starting to die. Anyway, we had in late March flexed on where there were 95% Central American workers. I got an email that 41 of my members were terminated because they were afraid to go to work. I called the president and owner of the company, and I said, something's not right here. How could you terminate 41 of my members? He said, well, they're afraid to come to work, and I need to run my business. We're essential. So I said, well, they're essential to me. They may not be essential to you. Your product is more essential, but my members mean more than your product. And we're able to get 38 of them back to work. And matter of fact, they purchased $10,000 worth of masks. They started cutting the breaks so that people could be 6 feet apart. And I had a sweat to get to my charger. And they gave hazard pay. So a bad situation turned really good. And the members and the stewards were very thankful that they have a union there to represent them. So that's just a little story I wanted to share of something that was bad that turned out well.
Thank you, brother. We are all working in these incredibly hard situations, and we will take any victory where we can get it. And you know, right now, especially Black and brown workers are bearing the brunt of being essential workers without PPE, without social distancing, without safe workplaces. And so wherever it is that we can accomplish that is a gain for us. And so thank you for that. Thank you, Joseph, for your leadership within the United Latinos. Manuel, I'm very glad to hear that you're doing much, much better. And I'm glad that you continue to do the excellent work that you do both here and across the border in Mexico. So thank you all for sharing the RWDSU perspective. It's always a wonderful one, and we love having you a part of the United Latinos.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna. We've gone over 5 minutes, but we're gonna take one last question because somebody has been patiently waiting here to ask their question. So I'm going to try to do this real quick. Hold on, please. So we're learning this. I think we've done a pretty decent job for this being our first time. I don't know what folks think, but let me go into the question and answer, folks, and that would be Brother Steve Douglas. Let me find you, brother. Steve, I cannot find you. Brother Douglas, do you have, can you put your phone number in the chat? I don't see you. Oh, there you are. I got you. Brother Douglas, how are you?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Hold on a sec. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Hold on. Let me take this off this other device, okay? Just a second. I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. We're all learning this technology. I think it's going to be part of our future and part of the way that we communicate and we continue to organize as a union. So we're all learning together.
All right, thank you. Yes, this is Steve Douglas. I'm a former city council member here in Commerce City in Colorado, and I have learned a lot being in that position for the last 8 years, and also working for UFCW for the last 43 years. And Kim's done an amazing job as our president for Local 7 UFCW, and I want to give her those props there as well. You know, my thing is that I've noticed is I work for King Soopers Kroger's, is this company was scrambling during the pandemic when it first happened because they didn't know how to, like other companies, they didn't know how to handle things. You know, so when things came up, they were following, they weren't the leader like they have in the past. They were working from behind. So when Target and other companies decided to give their employees hazardous pay, it took Kroger's a long time to decide to pull that lever. And when they did, you know, it came out hours of operations. Now we're back to full from 5 a.m. to midnight. That puts a lot of strain on all our employees. And, you know, it just shows there's no consideration for employees. And then you have these companies working together to say, hey, you know what? We don't have to pay these people any extra money. You know, we got people who are desperate for jobs. Let's just go ahead and give them opportunities. But then when they start hearing how things were handled by UFCW, not UFCW, but the companies that represent, I mean, the union's doing great, but the companies that were not doing great with the employees started getting sick. So that put a different dynamic on Kroger. So I would like to hear from leaders. What are you doing to reach our state and federal elected officials, and where they have to come on and actually defend and put things in place and policy for us, because just winning November is not good enough. We need people to know who the elected officials are and what questions to ask them. So we won't, when we run into this situation, we'll be ahead of the game. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Who on the panel wants to take that question?
Hi, Steve. Thank you for being on the call today and taking time out of your busy day to participate in this panel. You know, it goes back to what I was saying before, is that we have to have our members and leaders like you in the store continue to remind workers of their value. And, you know, these employers, you know, I think workers have to understand that the company has no moral compass here, or they don't feel any type of moral obligation to their workers. And we have to let our elected officials know, our communities know, just how essential, remind them. I think what really came to light during this whole pandemic was, especially for our grocery workers, just how essential you are to the community. I mean, while everybody else was sheltering in, you guys were making sure that our communities were fed and came to work and risked your life. You're still risking your life every single day. And I think we have to, you know, make sure that we are empowering and educating new workers that are coming in, all these employees that they hired, and let them know exactly you know, what the union is, which is all of you together collectively, and that we need to really keep the base fired up. I mean, you know, like you said, we can't just stop in November, because we need real change in this country. We cannot have people see two different type or experience two different Americas. I mean, we need to do things like stop the social, you know, this class warfare that's going on, or all of these social injustices and the systemic racism that we're seeing in this country. And I mean, participating in these protests are a big thing, you know, being vocal. Like you, I'm really proud that Steve, as a rank and file member, has been an elected official, and, you know, empowering other members to stand up just like you did to make that change, because it's going to take all of us to continue to work, because we got a lot of work to do, right? I mean, we have a lot of things that we have to change in our country and in our jobs.
Thank you very much, Kim. We're going to close it out. We're about 12 minutes over. This is only our first panel. There are 5 more coming. You know, one of the things that the pandemic brings for us is an opportunity to organize workers. So we're going to have panel on organizing. Our next panel will be the State of Latinos, talking a little bit more about Latinos in terms of a total socioeconomic picture, immigration, all of those things. And so stay tuned for the next series of panels. I want to thank this magnificent panel, not just for what they did here today, but for what they do every day for their members, for Latino members, for this organization, the United Latinos of the UFCW. They all exhibit leadership within our organization and within their local unions. And so I just want to say thank you so much. I want to thank all of the participants. I think we had a really great showing of folks for our very first webinar. We will put out the next one as soon as we can confirm the last of those panelists on that particular webinar. But we want to continue to do this and continue to educate our community. Just because we have to social distance and isolate does not mean that we cannot continue to communicate and to organize to build a better society and to keep advocating for workers and to eradicate racism where it exists. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good night.